My mother tried to fix things between my sister and me, but all it did was push us further apart. Now, I'm left wondering if I even want her in my life at all. I started dating my brother's best friend when I was just 16. We stayed together until I graduated high school, and then, he proposed. I said no. The drama that followed was unimaginable. My family begged me to reconsider. They suggested we could have a long engagement, or maybe even a promise to reconcile with my brother. My brother's relationship with me took a hit, but the rift with my sister only deepened. She was convinced my ex was the one and couldn't understand why I rejected him. It got unbearable when she began dating his brother. My ex was invited everywhere, family events, holidays, even when I wasn't around. I didn't protest, because, well, he was still their friend too. But things started to spiral when my sister pushed for us to get back together. She took it to extremes. Blind dates. Shared rooms during holidays. You name it. No occasion went by without my ex being invited. It wore me down. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and asked my parents to step in. They intervened, told my siblings to stop inviting him to family events. Things improved, but not for long. My brother backed off, but my sister? She never stopped. Everything came crashing down the moment I met my now husband during a semester abroad. He was from another university, in the same country, and we just clicked. It was like magic. After a year of dating, we were engaged. My family was overjoyed, except for my sister. She insisted I was just in a honeymoon phase, that it would wear off. It didn't. It only became clear that she would never let go of her obsession with me getting back with my ex. After countless fights, too many to count, I finally drew a line. I warned her, one more attempt, and I would walk away from her forever. What did she do? She threw me a curveball. She made me the villain. She pushed for me to spend all my time with the bridal party, which, of course, included my ex. And to make matters worse, she had one of her friends come as my husband's date. We didn't even realize it until the reception when the poor girl tried to make a move on my husband. My sister's justification? Since you're not married yet, it's okay to explore. I couldn't believe it. I walked out of the party, and the next day, I had a serious conversation with my parents and brother. I told them that I wouldn't speak to my sister again. If they tried to force a reconciliation, I would sever ties with all of them. My mom was crushed. She begged, tried to negotiate, but my dad and brother backed me up. 2 attempts from my mom, and that was it. Silence for 6 years. No calls. No messages. Nothing. My sister didn't stop trying, though. She sent gifts, threw tantrums, and I just ignored her. If we were at a family event, I acted like she didn't exist. At first, she'd make snarky comments, try to stir things up, but without anyone backing her up, she gave up. That was until the day I announced I was pregnant with my first child. It wasn't the first grandchild, but it was the first granddaughter. Everyone was thrilled, except my sister. My mom noticed, and a few days later, she asked to have tea with me. My gut told me to avoid it, but I went, hoping for the best. When I walked in, the first thing I saw was my sister's car. Then I entered the room, and there she was. With her husband, my ex, and his brother. They had organized an intervention, convinced that I was just being childish, that my stance had gone on long enough. My ex tried to explain that he was just being romantic, but understood why I couldn't appreciate it. His mother chimed in, saying that I was just hurting my sister, who only wanted the best for me. She'd apologized, so now I had to forgive her. I didn't say a word. I just stared at them in disbelief. My mom started reading a letter about how hurt she was that her daughters weren't close. My sister, tears streaming down her face, read her own letter, saying essentially the same thing. I sat there, silent. Then my brother showed up, and everything shifted. He was beyond furious. He grabbed my things and told everyone how disgusted he was by their actions. We sat outside in his car until my dad and husband arrived. By then, I was sobbing uncontrollably. He kept apologizing. What happened next, I'm still not sure. But the next day, I emailed everyone, except my mom, with my lawyer's contact information. I told them not to contact me again, and that if they did, I would go to the police. No one has reached out. But I know from my dad that my mom and sister are in a panic. They told him they hope to repair things, that my sister should be part of my child's life. My dad, staying with my brother, has supported me, though not everyone else in the family feels the same. Some mutual friends even reached out, worried about my sister's well-being, asking me what happened. My sister is spreading the narrative that my husband is keeping me away from my family. I don't like airing my private life, but since it's out there now, I posted everything on social media. Everyone who's been involved has been dragged into it, deservedly so, even if it wasn't exactly my intention. Now, my mom is inconsolable, and while I feel bad about it, it doesn't compare to how she made me feel with her intervention. A few days ago, I agreed to meet with her. I set clear boundaries for any future interactions, therapy, separate holidays, no sharing details of my life with my sister. Most importantly, I made it clear that if she ever tries anything like this again, she'll be cut off for good. The tension was thick, and I could feel my heart pounding. I tried explaining it to her, but she seemed so certain that having a baby meant everything would fall into place, that it would solve all the broken pieces. She thought all the drama, all the confusion, would just vanish, replaced by the sweet relief of new beginnings. But I knew better. It wasn't that simple. I had to tell her, it's a process. It doesn't just fix everything overnight. She has to prove she's changed, that she's truly different. My dad and brother have refused to speak to my sister. They apologize over and over, like they could somehow undo the damage, but the truth is, we've moved on. We've grown past it. Forgiving them wasn't easy, but it was necessary. As for my husband, he's been supportive of whatever decision I make, but my mother-in-law? She's hesitant. Cutting my mom out of my child's life? It doesn't sit right with her, even if she agrees it's ultimately up to me. And here I am, torn. The weight of the decision presses on me. What do I do about my mom? A comment caught my eye. Now that you're pregnant, you need to stop living in a fantasy world. The reality is your future lies with your ex. What about your baby? Are you seriously going to let your ex and his family just walk away from her? It stung. My sister's words were venomous. She claimed she wasn't trying to get us back together, but that I couldn't take away her right to be an aunt. She called me a bad sister for getting close to my new family, to my husband's side of things. But how could I ever believe her? The logic didn't make sense. How was I supposed to act when it felt like everything I knew was being turned upside down? I stared at the comment, struggling to comprehend it. My thoughts swirled. How did she expect me to live with this? The weight of these choices, the consequences, could I really let my sister's selfishness blind me to what was right? My husband was supportive, but my sister? She just couldn't see the bigger picture. Another comment stood out. She couldn't even be your best friend without you dating your ex. It hit me hard. Was that what it all came down to? My mom's involvement, her encouragement, it felt like it was all tied to this twisted idea of keeping our lives tied together. The strangest thing? My ex. He still holds onto those mixtapes I made him years ago. Those mixtapes are ancient, relics from a past that should have been long forgotten. He clings to them like some sort of memory, as if they hold the key to something more. It's unsettling, to say the least. Another comment, someone had the audacity to call my ex a stalker. And I couldn't argue. But to hear that he was still involved in my brother's life? That shook me. I didn't realize how deep the roots ran. But I also knew I had to be firm. My mother's approval was part of the problem. My sister, she only continued her behavior because she had my mom's support. It was a dangerous dynamic. I tried explaining this to my brother. He had begun distancing himself from my ex after I voiced my concerns. But there was still a gap, or rift between what was and what could have been. And yet, despite everything, my husband's relationship with my brother had strengthened. They were close now, tighter than ever. But there was always that unspoken tension, that coldness when it came to my ex. My brother only speaks to him if it's about our nephew, or just out of basic courtesy. One thing became clear to me: my mother was fueling all of this. Encouraging it. At every turn. But I never saw it coming. Not from her. It used to be so different. She used to be kind to my husband. She always made an effort to make him feel welcome. But now, I didn't know what to believe. Was it all an act? I started questioning everything about our relationship. Were we living a lie? Had it all been fake? I wasn't sure where the lines had blurred, but they had. And I had to make a decision fast. After the intervention, my husband spoke to them, telling them they needed to truly reflect on what they valued in life. He urged them to be kinder, more open-minded, and to appreciate the beauty in everything around them. But he made it clear, no child would be raised in a toxic environment. That's just one more reason I love him. He's always so grounded in what matters. My husband is shattered by my mom's behavior. He says that she's shown her true colors, and as far as revenge goes, she won't get anything from him. Nothing at all. He and my sister sat down with my mother-in-law to explain why her comment was not only out of line but deeply hurtful. She had no idea how far it had gone. Many people assume my mom comes from a loving family, but that couldn't be further from the truth. My dad and brother have been apologizing endlessly for the role they may have played in all of this. My dad still can't believe things escalated to this point. He keeps saying it feels like a bad dream, like it's all too surreal. But through it all, they've been there for me. No matter how ridiculous the situation gets with my mom or sister, they have my back. I want to thank everyone who sent such kind and supportive messages. They meant the world to me, and I decided to share this update here so it wouldn't be lost, like my original post. Things are complicated, great in some ways, horrible in others, but I'm focusing on staying positive. My brother and his wife sat my nephews down to explain that Grandma was ill and had tried to hurt Auntie and the little one. They told the kids that Grandma wouldn't be part of their lives anymore, but that didn't mean she didn't love them. It was tough, but the kids are smart. They understood. They were also told about another aunt who wouldn't be in their lives anymore. It's not just because of me, it's because she hasn't been great with them either. My mom lost it when she found out. She started claiming she had a right to see the grandchildren and that she would get her way. My dad has been looking for a permanent place to stay but is with us for now, mainly because my brother's wife is visiting, and we have the space. He's incredibly upset. He's already called divorce lawyers, changed all of his bank details, and started the process of untangling everything. My mom hasn't stopped bombarding him with calls, messages, and emails, but he doesn't respond to any of it. His lawyer advised him not to block her, for now, but he's considering forgiveness. I, however, had a huge spike in blood pressure a few days after my last post because my mom, along with my sister, decided to show up at my house uninvited. My sister had never been here before, and my mom knew I didn't want her here. But she did it anyway. When I got home from running errands and saw their car, I just couldn't do it. I called my relatives, and it was my husband's sister who got to the house first. She confronted them, telling them they had to leave or she'd call the police for trespassing. They left, but I felt awful. We went to the doctor, and that's when they told me all this stress was not good for my health or the baby. My dad ended up going home with my brother, my uncle, and my husband, taking everything he could think of. My husband says my sister was there too, yelling at my dad, blaming him for destroying her family. But my dad was so upset, he told her they almost killed the baby and that he didn't want to talk to any of them again. My sister kept texting my brother, begging for help, but it didn't come. I'm heartbroken for my nephew. He's losing so much because of his mom's misguided beliefs. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. As for my mom's insistence on custody and grandparent rights, my lawyer sent her a letter, stating that her actions have caused harm to my health and the baby. If she doesn't stop harassing me, it'll become an official legal matter. My brother sent his own letter accusing her of harassment too. They've both refused therapy. Maybe they are mentally ill, but it's clear that they've been in agreement on everything for a long time. For now, I'm focusing on spending the holidays with my family, taking care of myself, and going to therapy. I've received quite a few requests for an update, and I finally found some time to write one. First, thank you so much for your kind messages and advice. You helped us stay one step ahead, even when we felt paranoid. Some of you asked how we found out the gender of the baby. We waited until after the 20-week mark to announce it. We'd experienced a loss before, and we wanted to be absolutely sure, to feel safe with the news before sharing it. We thought it would be special for my mom, but you were right. After posting, I handed the phone to my husband, and he read your messages. He spent a few days going over them, and that's when we realized we had to take extra precautions. We checked our house top to bottom. Thankfully, we found nothing, but the feeling of unease stayed. So, we decided to go to a hotel with my dad. While there, we made an unsettling discovery. My fur baby, a tiny dog, had a tracker on his vest. He gets cold easily, so he wears a funny little vest, and never in a million years would we have thought to check there. But when my dad walked him around the hotel area, my sister showed up, asking about me. That's when we found the tracker. I was devastated, and my husband was furious. We immediately knew we had to move. We're renting for now, and we also rented out our old place so it's not just sitting empty. I used to love that house, but now it feels like it's been tainted in some way. Unfortunately, my parents' house feels the same. Everyone, my brother, my husband, my dad, even my husband's family, has changed their numbers, updated electronics, and informed friends, employers, and the police. We've started therapy, individual and family therapy. My dad and brother feel guilty, even though I've forgiven them. We're healing, and we're doing it together. My sister and mom, however, refuse to acknowledge they need help. My dad made a new will, leaving a trust fund and inheritance for my nephew. As for my sister, she got a token amount. He's done with her. I was feeling bad for her, but now, I've chosen to focus on my baby. She's here, and we are blessed. Things aren't what I imagined, they aren't how I thought I'd spend this time, but so many friends and family have stepped up and surprised us. Towards the end, we became hypervigilant, even testing people we weren't sure about, like when I went into labor. We found out who was still feeding info to my mom and sister and cut them out. Everyone else understood when we explained the reasons behind our actions. As for my ex, whom my friends now call Bates, he went around spreading lies, saying the baby was his. Nobody believes him anymore, but it made my husband contact his employer, and Bates was suspended pending review. It looks like he'll be fired. His employer has been asking for more information, and they've been apologetic. My mom has tried to find us, but all the people who know where we are have gone no contact with her. My dad's lawyer sent her a letter saying that, due to her instability, all communication will go through the lawyers. It's been just us and my dad, and I feel for him being alone. He's promised he's okay, and he insists none of this is my fault. But still, I feel awful for him. He's been the best caretaker, the best babysitter, diaper changer, anything and everything. My nephews are still loving and sweet. My dad even got a visit with my sister's son, which came about after she started making videos, threatening self-harm unless my husband stopped alienating her family. My dad emailed her about seeing her son and told her he would call the police if she didn't stop making threats. Thankfully, it seems to have stopped. Lastly, someone asked about Bates's false hope. I have no feelings for him at all. I spent years feeling uncomfortable because I thought he'd move on, but once I spoke up and met my husband, I was done with it. I had a very long engagement and married after my sister, but now, I choose a healthy life for myself and my family over anything else. Despite everything that's happened, I've learned so much about loyalty, love, and compassion. And in a strange way, I feel lucky that it all came to light. The journey has been overwhelming, but here I am with an update I've been eager to share. For the longest time, things felt like a whirlwind, but now, in the midst of it all, there's clarity and change. My dad and I officially moved into a new home, a fresh start for both of us. He's settled into the guest house, and though we've had our fair share of discussions, both in therapy and out, it feels like the right choice. We came to the conclusion that having him with us is good, but we all need space. As we navigate this new phase, we're still renting out the old house, trying to figure out what's next. My dad now sees the grandchildren at least 3 times a week. It's a heartwarming sight to see him reconnecting with them. But there's still tension with my sister. She insists on knowing where he lives before letting him see her child, and while her request is understandable, it feels like a constant hurdle. My mom, on the other hand, has made her frustrations known, especially through lawyers, arguing that it's unfair my dad gets to see all the grandchildren while she doesn't have the same opportunity. But there's nothing she can do about it. Then, about a month ago, my dad came to me with a confession that made my stomach tighten. It was one of those moments where you know something's coming, and you brace yourself for the impact. Turns out, he's been secretly paying for my nephew's schooling and babysitting. That's why my sister allows him to see her child. He felt guilty, as if he was hiding something dark. I reassured him that there was no need to feel bad. It wasn't wrong, it was his way of being involved, of staying connected. Mother's Day rolled around, and it brought a strange surprise. My dad received an email with a link to an Instagram account. The video posted there was a sad tribute to my mom, painting her as someone abandoned by her family, while glorifying my sister as the saint who stayed by her side. It was pathetic, truly enraging, but I didn't let it consume me. I forwarded it to the lawyer instead, feeling a sense of justice in that. May was a turning point. My dad officially filed for divorce, and the process is still unfolding. Despite everything, he's clear, he would rather drink bleach than go back to her. I think that says it all. It feels final. My brother and husband took him out for Father's Day, and it was a blast. But my sister, she flooded the day with posts, trying to paint a picture of perfection, all while managing to block my dad from even learning about it. We wanted him to enjoy his day, to be free of the constant drama. On top of that, they did a camping trip. Well, they booked a suite at a hotel, then pitched a tent in the middle for the kids, with a smaller one for the baby. It wasn't exactly roughing it, but the kids loved it. Having a baby of my own has been life-changing. Seeing my husband step up as the amazing father I knew he would be brings me so much joy. Yes, it's exhausting, but the support we have is unmatched. We're surrounded by a rock-solid foundation, and I couldn't be more grateful. It's beautiful to see the kids bonding, sharing in age-appropriate activities, and learning that they don't have to spend time with people they don't like. They know their voices matter, and right now, they're obsessed with the baby, calling themselves her protectors. We've been hosting little get-togethers, brunches, and it feels right. Family time is now a blessing, not a headache, especially without my sister's toxic presence. I know it's harsh to say, but she truly sucked the energy out of every room she walked into. My mom has also started spending time with the baby. She comes over once a week, and I genuinely feel respected by her. She's never asked to take the baby for sleepovers or anything, which I appreciate. It's a new kind of relationship with her, and honestly, it feels like a breath of fresh air. I've broken down a few times, missing the mom I thought I had, but I'm learning to let go of that version of her. The mother who told me I'd be a terrible parent, who called me a hateful woman. Therapy has been a journey, one that's teaching me to focus on the good. And speaking of good news, Bates, well, he's been completely terminated. His reputation in his industry? Destroyed. It's gone. And his brother? Well, he's in the same boat, but because of the nature of his work, he's still holding on to his job. As for Bates, he sent me a 12-page, double-sided letter filled with his hurt. He claimed that I was denying him his rights, and that my husband was so threatened by him that he had to destroy him professionally. But honestly, I couldn't even bring myself to read it. My lawyer did, though, and gave me a summary. I heard through the grapevine, from people who know he's been stalking me, that the mother of his children moved. He didn't care at all. In fact, he said it was for the best. He doesn't even care about his own kids, but he wants to play with mine. It's tragic. Sadly, he won't be homeless, though. Mommy's already taken him in, letting him move back in with her. So I doubt he'll learn anything from this. It's not the flashiest of updates, but it's where things stand right now. Oh, and my husband did something I honestly wasn't expecting. He burned or donated every single item my mom or parents had ever given him, with my dad's blessing. He said, "Life's too short to give her space in our lives." He doesn't want her memory to linger, not even in material things. And I couldn't agree more. And so, here we are. A new chapter for all of us, with a few hurdles, but we're moving forward. I'm truly grateful for everything that's fallen into place, and I feel like the worst is behind us. When the chaos erupted, we made a conscious decision. We did not fire our cleaning lady. She wasn't just an employee, she had been a trusted part of my husband's family for decades. The weight of the situation hit me hard. I couldn't imagine her being left without work, especially because of the madness my own family had caused. But here's the thing, our relationship with her was never about me sitting in some grand office with her scrubbing floors at my feet. We were always a team, equal in our respect for one another. In the midst of all this, my dad took charge. He spoke directly with her and reassured her she wasn't fired. She was, in fact, on a paid vacation. Until we settled into a new home, he told her to take a break and wait for us. She was overjoyed by the gesture, and so was her family. They were grateful, so grateful that my dad began receiving little gifts, food, things from them as a way of showing their appreciation. Now, it's where things get interesting. Her sister, who owns a nail salon, caught my dad's attention. A lovely woman, independent, with grown children who understood the delicate dynamics at play. They hit it off, and despite their bond, my dad made it clear he had no intention of moving in or remarrying. She was fine with that. She valued her independence too much. My mother, on the other hand, almost had a stroke when she heard about the new relationship. She went on and on about it being some late-life crisis, accusing my dad of turning into a sugar daddy. This, of course, was just what I heard, since I'm not in contact with her. But what I did hear wasn't pretty. She was struggling, financially, having never learned the art of budgeting and always relying on my dad to stop her from making ridiculous purchases. Then there was my sister. She was in a similar mess. My dad had always helped her financially, but not anymore. And trust me, you'd better believe she didn't take it well. You see, my nephew, her son, had started saying things that no child should ever say. He called my child an affair baby. He mocked my other nephews, even going as far as pushing one of them during a birthday party, claiming that they weren't his cousins. The kids, confused and hurt, immediately told an adult. My dad did what he could. He spoke with him, trying to get through. But the boy kept repeating his cruel words. When my dad spoke to my sister about it, she said she couldn't do anything. She argued that children always tell the truth, and that there was nothing she could do to stop him. Well, that's when my dad drew the line. He cut them off. The family panic was real. My sister broke down crying, but she's as stubborn as they come. My nephew's world had flipped upside down. Now he was at public school, far from the support he had once gotten. My husband, feeling a certain way about it all, insisted my dad sever ties with them. No more help, no more favors. But there's more to this story. My nephew's father? Let's just say he's in a bit of a bind. He had been employed in an industry that, well, let's just say it dealt with vulnerable women. Things went south fast, with accusations tied to stalking, and the organization he worked for wasn't about to let that blow up in their faces. He got fired. And so, we're back to the letters. Yes, 2 more long, rambling, handwritten letters arrived, filled with a whole lot of nothing. But of course, since they were sent through my lawyer's address, guess who gets the pleasure of reading and filing them? Yep, me. I love my lawyer, she's a real champ. Now, beyond the letters and the usual gossip, there's this one moment that still sits with me. I was at the grocery store when a random woman approached me, looking at my child with judgment in her eyes. She asked, point blank, if my child was Bates's baby. I stood there, utterly speechless, trying to make sense of what was happening. When I asked her what she was on about, she claimed she had seen a photo of us on his profile and accused me of hurting such a good man. This woman was adamant that I was wrong. Turns out, Bates was still spreading the story that my child was his. The audacity! But here's the kicker, this photo wasn't even something that had been shared publicly. It was sent to a family group once, and that was it. I told my husband immediately. He was beyond enraged but managed to keep it together. We knew what we had to do next, uncover the source. Long story short, it was my dad's two sisters. They were the ones feeding information to my mom. My dad, disappointed beyond measure, didn't hesitate. He cut them off without a second thought. To this day, they're begging him for another chance, but it's over. No going back. Meanwhile, my brother's family? They're doing great. We see them often, even when on a few family holidays together. And as for my husband's family, they've been nothing but supportive. We even let Mill, my in-law, babysit overnight now. She's thrilled. She loves having all the grandkids under one roof. Sometimes, she even pretends to be an airplane with them. They all love her. She's a former flight attendant, after all. But here's the funny thing, she had to make her socials private because my mother kept stalking her. Yeah, we know, it's all about jealousy. She's made her own bed. Through it all, my husband has been my rock. He keeps me grounded, especially when the little things start to get to me. We've even been discussing the possibility of having another baby or maybe adopting. The conversation is still ongoing, but one thing's for sure, we have a solid support system, and we're privileged to have that. But there's something else. I still miss my mom deeply. Sometimes, I find myself crying when I think about all the milestones I can no longer share with her. But at the end of the day, she's made her choices. And the safety and well-being of my family come first. Oh, and before I forget, Father's Day. It was a memorable one. They went camping. It went great, aside from the mosquito bites and some rather poorly placed sunburns. A final note, yes, Bates asked for a paternity test, but we already did one. Not with him, though, with my husband. We never had any doubts. But my lawyer thought it'd be a good idea to have it done, just in case he tried something. The photo incident? That was ages ago, and we've already taken it down from his Facebook page. I didn't want to go any further than that, I just don't want to see him again.